Welcome back to another exciting episode of 60 Plus Uncensored. I'm your host, Seb Fry, and today I'm thrilled to introduce a guest who spent more than 3 decades helping people and companies tell their stories to the world. And now he's telling his own. Steve Turner is the principal and co-founder of Solomon Turner PR in St. Louis, an agency that he launched over 35 years ago with his wife and partner, Shelley Solomon. Over the years, Steve's worked with some really big names like Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Steve Forbes, just to name a few. So sit back and enjoy this inspiring conversation with Steve Turner, a storyteller who proves that creativity, purpose, and reinvention don't have an expiration date. Steve, how you doing?
Doing well today, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. So I know you're pretty big news over there in your own market, but I think nationally maybe people might not be too familiar with who Steve Turner is. So maybe you could answer the question, who is Steve Turner?
I've been trying to figure that out for a while. Now we've been running a PR firm for the past 35 years, and my partner Shelley Solomon and I are actually married as well as partners in business. And she was one of the first female people we're in St. Louis, in the St. Louis area, to own her own ad agency. And after trials and tribulations as a sports announcer on radio and doing different things on the radio end, I always liked the big idea of working with clients and getting them maybe on a billboard or an article in a newspaper, something that wasn't just radio oriented, and used the creative side and came back to my hometown here in St. Louis and started a PR firm and did that for a few years and then merged with my wife. And so we had Solomon Turner and employees, and we did graphic design, and I did the PR stuff and the marketing. So it was a good marriage in more ways than one, and started there. And over time we grew the agency. We picked up some really great clients. Brian Tracy, we ran into those folks. Interesting story about that relationship. He's a huge motivational speaker. He and Tony Robbins and Tom Hopkins were kind of the leaders of the pack in those days. And so Brian's people were in St. Louis, and I was at a radio station with another client getting him ready to go on the air for an interview, and this guy walked in with this huge stack of Brian Tracy cassette albums. In those days, cassette albums were a big deal, if you might remember.
I remember.
If you're old enough. Anyway, he walked in there. I'm like, this is odd. I've been listening to Brian on my own, and I'm like, by any chance are you with Brian Tracy? He goes, oh, yeah, why? I said, well, I'm in the PR business. I've been listening to Brian. I love him. And I really would love if he's coming to town to promote his seminar. They go, what? And I go, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. Just get me some tickets to see him, and I won't charge you anything because I love the guy. And they were like, whoa, wait a minute. This is too good to be true. So I had a meeting with them, and they went through the rigmarole, and then they finally said, okay, let's do it, even though they weren't putting out any cash. And we got some really great results for them. The seminar was a huge success. We got radio coverage, some print coverage, and all kinds of stuff. So it was a big success. And they said, Steve, how much would you guys charge us to go to Cincinnati and do exactly the same thing in that market? And for Brian's seminar there. And I said, well, let's put a package together. So we did. And they didn't have a heck of a lot of money in those days. So I went into the market and worked out some PR and some trade deals on radio and things like that. And they made me sleep in a hotel, but it was like a storage closet. They put me in like a little equipment room and found a mattress and just said, yeah, you could just sleep here. I was like, okay. So here I was sleeping in a closet for like 3 or 4 days. Yeah, as they were starting, this was really the way they were starting their business, because Brian was known in some circles, but mostly not in those days. So they did it there, and that was great. And then they said, well, let's go to other markets. And I'm like, okay, what do you have in mind? Well, let's do Cleveland, let's do Philadelphia, let's do L.A., let's do Chicago, whatever. And so we were constantly in motion trying to put all those balls together and still work with the clients we already had. So that was a great experience. So we ended up doing that, and we were in Philadelphia, and this is a good story. And so we were getting ready for Brian to do his spiel in Philadelphia in front of well over 1,000 people. And so I said, well, who's going to introduce Brian? And they looked at me and they said, well, you are. I said, what? They said, well, who knows more about Brian than you do? Plus, you can, you've got a success story, listening to him and all these things. And I said, oh, boy. So I've never really spoken in front of 1,000 people before, maybe not even 100. So here I was getting up there and in front of all these people, and doing the 5-minute intro or whatever it was. So it was nerve-wracking, but it was fun.
But what year was that you were doing all this for Brian Tracy? Was it multiple years or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was probably in the late 80s.
The late 80s when Ronald Reagan was president. I remember that. Or actually, Reagan was, what was he? Mid-80s, I guess, right? Mid-80s to early, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, mid-80s, early 1990s.
So you met Brian Tracy many times then, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, I don't know much about Brian Tracy, but he wrote that book, Always Eat the Frog First or something like that.
Is that it. Yeah.
Right. So, okay, so I'm really into, like, all these sales guys, right? Like Zig Ziglar and, Chet Holmes and all these guys, right? So, like, what is Brian Tracy's, like, secret formula, would you say?
Well, he is what I would call a total sponge of information. And in his prime, I had no idea where he came up with this stuff. He was ahead of his time, and he would come up with this stuff about being with younger people, for example. And this was like 1988, 1990, maybe. It's like, well, studies have shown that if you're with younger people, what's going to happen to you if you're older is you're going to start looking like them. And I said, what do you mean by that? Well, your face is going to take on a different look to it, a tighter look, like you're almost, 2, 3, 4, 5 years younger. And I said, really? And so he kept coming up with this stuff, and I didn't realize how accurate that was until years later when I was working on a project with these 3 young people. And it's true. I mean, all of a sudden I'm like, gee, I kind of feel like I'm, like 40 or 35 again, not 50, not 55. That was pretty amazing. So that's part of his shtick. He has the psychology of success was his big thing. And he talks about all these great sayings and these great people that have been successful and what they did and how you can model their behavior. What they do and how hard they work and what you need to do. And then he does the psychology of selling, which was geared strictly for selling people and, the ways to become a better salesperson. So some of these things today may be a little outdated or, regurgitated 100 different ways. But at the time, he was breaking new ground and people paid a lot of money to see him in action. So part B of this story is that one of the people that was working for Tracy went to work for Tony Robbins. And they gave me a call and said, hey, Steve, I'm working with Robbins now. Oh, okay. They said, how would you like to work for us too? And I was like, what? So they said, yeah. So we ended up working with Tony Robbins and Brian at the same time. And Robbins at the time wasn't the megastar that he is today. He was just kind of getting out there. Some people knew who he was. I'd see this gargantuan figure on a stage, and he would do all these tricks. One of Tony's best tricks was you would go to a seminar, and he wants you there at like 7:30 in the morning. So you'd rush out, and you think you were going to, okay, I'm starving. What am I going to eat? Well, they really don't have anything for you to eat. So you kind of wait for lunch. Like maybe you figure, well, you're going to break 11, 11:30, 12 for lunch. They don't. He just keeps going. And finally, about 1:30, you're like ready to pass out. And everybody in the audience is just like dying. And then finally, they take a break for lunch. And, all right, be back in a half hour. So that was part of Tony's shtick. And
so you did the same thing for Tony Robbins that you did for Brian Tracy. You went around town to town promoting his events wherever you went.
Exactly.
Unleash the Giant Within or whatever it is. I mean, he has like these different things that he does. So you went to like a lot of these events yourself then. I guess you were there. Have you ever walked across the coals?
No, I have not had the privilege of doing that. I think they finally shut that down after somebody burnt their feet somehow. I don't know.
Right,
But
too much liability.
yeah, I don't know. It was kind of gimmicky, but yeah, it worked. But
Well, but I mean, is it really gimmicky though, right? Because it basically is like, it's conquering your fears, right? I mean, like if you
right,
can
that's the
walk
whole
across
point.
you can walk across a bed of hot coals, man. Like what? You can't pick up the phone and call somebody on a cold call or whatever, right? I mean, like I think
That's
probably you can,
exactly
right?
it. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Yeah, you're exactly right. So one day we're working for Robbins, and I get a call, and it's from a radio station in Los Angeles, and they said, "Hey, Tony spoke to the Los Angeles Kings hockey team yesterday, and they broke their like 12 or 13 game losing streak. So Tony motivated them, and they went out and they finally won a game. Can we interview Tony?" So I go, "Yeah, let me see if I can locate him and get him on the radio." And sure enough, I was able to pull that one off, which was great because Tony was just starting to ascend at that time, and started getting out there, and these kind of miracles were starting to happen. So this was great for him. And then he went on to work with presidents and corporate CEOs, and now he's got Netflix movies and all these things. So yeah, he's larger than life. Uh, and funny, the addendum to this story is that the seminar people at the time were all very tight knit. So other people would call us and say, "Hey, I've got Robbins. We're promoting him separately here, or we're putting a group of speakers together in San Diego. Can you come out and help us promote that?" So we were kind of like the seminar PR team for like 5 or 6 different groups at one time. So it was kind of crazy, but we were able to pull it off. So that was that was really a lot of fun.
That's pretty amazing because I would think that like these kind of because I also understand you worked with Steve Forbes too, right? I mean,
Yeah, that was a little different deal there. The Forbes thing was through Northwestern Mutual, which even today is one of our clients. So we did a lot of work for them, and then they decided they were going to bring Steve Forbes in like a co-seminar with their CEO. So they started bringing Forbes in for all their clients to see. So there was like 1,000, maybe 2,000 people in the room at the hotel. And so Forbes would talk, and then Northwestern, we did a good job. And, I got to know Forbes a little bit and his people. And so Northwestern called and said, "Hey, we've got Forbes going to New Orleans and Colorado and here, there, and everywhere. Can you handle that one for us?" I said, "Okay." So that's how we got involved with Forbes. And so we promoted him in some other markets and got him on radio and, and some print and things like that, as the
so
schedule would allow.
how long has Solomon Turner been around now? Total number of years that I mean, like you said, late '80s, right? So we actually called Solomon Turner back in like 1989, or
Yeah, I had the Turner Group, and she had S. Solomon and Associates. So when we merged, it became Solomon Turner. I always joke she got the name first, but I got the bigger office. So at the time, that was fine with me. But yeah, so we've been around for 35 as Solomon Turner, and we've been fortunate to win several awards and do different things. One of them is we have a publication called Small Business Monthly, and each year they put out a list of the top PR firms in St. Louis, and we've been fortunate to make that list for 17 years in a row. So I'm grateful for that and all the clients that vote on that and the business community and so forth. So that's been great. And I was named a rock star publicist by Authority Magazine, which was kind of interesting, and did this big article about it with them. And we've had other accolades along the way. So it's been kind of a good journey, and we're still out there hustling a little bit and focusing on the book and some other things.
yeah. So it seems to me, and I'm no expert in PR, that you've had like an unusually high degree of success for like, I mean, St. Louis is not a major market. I wouldn't think. I would think like New York and L.A., Chicago, would be major markets. But here you are attracting some pretty big names in business. What's the secret?
Well, that's a good question. The the secret is really to get out there, meet people, and network. And then when somebody gives you a chance, do a great job or as good a job as you can. And somebody said, well, we use Solomon Turner, and they did all these things. This is pretty good. Why don't you call them and see what they can do for you? And that's happened on many occasions, and so you pick up a lot of business that way. Networking is really great in our business. You're right, we're not in New York, we're not in LA, we're not even in Chicago. But we have been able to produce some big league results with major national media. One of the funny stories, do you remember the SARS scare?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
SARS?
Yeah,
before
absolutely.
COVID, way back.
Yeah.
Everybody was afraid, and they thought it was going to turn into a pandemic. It didn't, but everybody was going crazy, and it was on the news constantly. So one of our clients, Officeware at the time in Louisville, Kentucky, sold all kinds of printing equipment and different kinds of digital printing stuff. And they were getting some feedback from their clients. They're like, well, gee, all these keyboards and things are going back and forth, with your people, my people, are we all going to get sick from this? What's going on? So they came up with this SARS prevention kit. And one of their people did some graphics of a germ and put it on this plastic bag, and inside they put Kleenex and hand wipes and all this stuff. So it was like a SARS prevention kit. And the graphic was fantastic at the time. And they called me and said, is there anything we can do with this? And I said, oh, my God, this is perfect. So we were able to get a hold of NBC, and NBC News says, yeah, let's do it. And they actually sent a crew to Louisville to interview people at this relatively small business that had a novel approach to battling the SARS thing. So that was pretty crazy. And it's a good story. And so obviously the local people there picked it up, especially after the local newspapers. I called them and they said, hey, we were on NBC. They said, oh, we'll write about that. So they wrote in their paper that Officeware was on NBC. So we got more mileage, and then he was interviewed on a bunch of radio stations and talk shows and stuff. So we got a lot of mileage out of that. So
okay. So networking, right? Okay, so that's great. I'm very interested in networking. So what are your tips for networking? Because, a lot of people, and especially I think a lot of seniors in particular, might be reluctant to go networking because, maybe they feel they're out of shape, they're off their prime, they don't know anybody, that their skills may have atrophied, or the things they know about aren't really current anymore. So I think a lot of people who are older might be more averse to networking than somebody who's like 30s, 40s. So you're over 60, maybe. Is that true? You're
yeah, I'm over 70.
You're over 70, and you're still out there networking, right? Okay, so
a little bit, yeah, not like the old days.
Little bit here and there, dabbling in it, right? But maybe when you were 62, you were probably still doing a lot of networking, 10 years ago,
absolutely.
Right? So what's the secret? How can you be an effective networker when you're 60 plus?
Well, the first thing you have to do is define what goals you want. Are you trying to get business? Do you just want to meet friends? Do you want to join a social group? Do you want to be in a book club? It just depends on what your goals are. If you want to do a business thing, a few places to start. Chambers of commerce are always a good place to start. You go there and there's 100 people, 200 in a room, and you can start shaking hands, join the group. They'll introduce you around. Those are always good groups to infiltrate and kind of get your name out and do different things like that. There might be private business groups that you can join. It just depends. If you're an engineer, maybe there's an engineering club. If you're in IT, maybe there's a tech club, even a car collector club. It just depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. But that's what I would do. And then the thing is, when you get there, don't just stand around and wait for people to come to you. Be fairly aggressive and go around. People are there to network, so it's not like they're going to be shocked if you approach them. But go out there, extend your hand. Hi, I'm Steve Turner. How are you? And after a while, it's not what they can do for you, but what you can do for them. So I always ask them, how can I help you? What would be a good strategy for you today? What are you trying to leave here with? Well, I would really like to meet somebody in engineering or accounting. I need a new accountant. Is there anybody? Well, let me see if I can find somebody for you. Or if I can't, I'll look on my Rolodex and come up with some people for you to call so you can make that connection. So those are the kind of special things where you can really notch a lot of good vibrations, pardon the Beach Boys, to move forward and get your name and your authority out there. One of the things that I'd like to do is, if you can do it, is to be kind of the go-to person for a lot of this stuff. So, oh, well, they know everybody. You know, you need this, you need that, give them a call. Well, yeah, and I'm also thinking about some PR. Oh, we'll call Steve, you know, and his group. Yeah, they'll be happy to talk to you. And we do, and sometimes it's not a fit, sometimes it is. But those are the key things. Find out what groups, what's your strategy, what goals do you have to get out of it. Then go to a few things and see how it goes. Stay with the good ones, get rid of the bad ones, and then find out what people need. It's not just what you need, but what they need. So if you can cross that bridge and help them get what they want, then eventually you'll get what you want.
Are you quoting Zig Ziglar here?
Actually, I am, from Yazoo, Mississippi. Yeah, I can't tell you the number of times I've heard those tapes. More than 20, I can assure you. I've seen Zig. I saw Zig when he was, alive, and he was interesting. Very interesting.
I never saw Zig Ziglar, but of course I've heard many of his, not tapes really, they're all in MP3s by the time I was hearing them for the most part. I don't think I even had a CD of Zig Ziglar. But, okay, well, listen, that sounds great. That was a very good point. Like, what can I do for you, right? So that's a wonderful networking tip. And, I've never actually asked anybody that at a networking mixer. So I'm going to, I've asked people that in subsequent follow questions, but like in conversations, but never actually at the mixer. That's a really good insight. I love that. Okay, so you meet some people, maybe you go away with half a dozen business cards. How do you turn that, spark that, bring it to life as an actual, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a relationship with somebody, right, who can like refer business to you. So you've obviously been very successful, Steve. What's the secret? Like, how do you, like, after you meet them, and how do you like turn that into like a really productive, fruitful relationship that's going to, put you in a position to get referred by people?
Yeah, so after you get their cards or whatever it is, and they've kind of hinted that it would be okay for you to call them, or you can meet. So you follow up with a call or an email and say, hey, it was great meeting you at XYZ meeting. Let's grab some coffee. I'd love to learn more and how I can help you more. So that opens the door. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go to Starbucks or here, there, whatever the coffee place is, and go there. Or maybe sometimes they say, well, let's do lunch. I forget coffee. Let's just do lunch. So, and you meet people and you have a longer conversation and you find out what they're all about, what makes them tick, and they find out a little bit about you and what you can provide. And if they can't use your service, a lot of times they'll refer you to somebody that can. And that's where it really pays off, that it may not be the immediate person that you meet, but somebody they know. So, as somebody once said, it's not who you know, but it's how many people they know that makes it worthwhile. So if as many people to get to know you, your name, and what you do, you build your brand, and you get more action out there and more response. So, it's like PR, getting your brand out there, getting people to talk about you, getting people to hit on your website, getting those phone calls, getting those orders, getting through the funnel. How are we going to do all these things? It's building and building constantly, getting that brand out there and shaking hands, meeting people. It's almost like you're, at the beginning, it's like you're running for office almost. You're shaking a lot of hands, doing a lot with babies, and all this stuff. But, you get out there and eventually you'll crack through and start bringing in some business.
So now you touched upon another topic that I'm very interested in right now, more so than at any point in my, somewhat long-ish life. That is brand building. So I'm reading this book right now called Wealthy and Well Known. Have you heard of that book before?
No,
No. Okay. Well,
no, that's one I haven't heard. There's a million, there's a lot of them out there, but no. I'll write it down now and check it out if you
yeah,
say
it's
it's
by
good.
AJ Vaden, I guess. I think he said he also worked for Tony Robbins, and there's what's the guy, the money guy, Dave Ramsey. I guess Dave Ramsey is one of his
yeah.
clients, right? Yeah. So he talks about building a brand, and I'm only halfway through the book. Kind of got sidetracked, but I have it I carry it around with me because I keep on wanting to read it. So he says that like you need to have like a message, a very clearly defined message. You need to identify your target avatar's problem in one word and have a one word solution to that problem, and then the message, which is a command to them, which is how they can solve that problem. Is that what you guys do at Solomon Turner? Do you help people build brands? I mean, I always think PR is just like getting press releases out and like arranging interviews on podcasts and radio shows. What really does PR people, do they help build brands?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the goal. That's why you do the PR and everything. So we'll sit down with somebody like yourself and say, okay, what are your goals? What are your objectives? Well, we have this problem. How can you solve it? So you're right. You're a problem solver, number one. Can you identify the answer, the solution you have to their problem? If you can do that, you're ahead of the game. So that's kind of where it starts. And then you kind of build from there. What is the messaging that somebody's going to be interested in your target audience? And who are they? I mean, depending on the audience in today's world, somebody 18 is a lot different than somebody 35, and somebody 35 is a lot different than somebody 50. So how do you do a message for maybe each group, if that's who you're selling to, or if you're just selling to a specific niche? I want these guys that are 50 to 60. I really want those guys. They're the ones with the money. They're going to buy the cars. They're going to do these things. Okay, so let's put a message directed to them. What do they like to do? What are their habits? What are their psychographics? They like golf. They like boating. They like fishing. You could kind of paint a picture over time, and then the more people you talk to and the more clients you kind of get this profile, this bio of who is the ideal client. What do they read? What do they like? Well, it's this pattern that's repeatable. So these are the guys I'm after. Each one of these guys has a $10 to $20 million business. Over 20 is too high, under 10 is too low for my sweet spot. Well, if they're 9, will I work with them? Of course. If they're 22, will I work with them? Of course, if we get them. But the sweet spot is 10 to 20. So I'm going to do my research and find out what their annual revenue is and go after those ones that are really in my super sweet spot, the ones where I can get the barrel of the bat on the ball. And those are the guys I want to chase. So, and where are they? What networking events do they go to if you can get them? How can I reach them? Is it an email newsletter? Is it LinkedIn? How do I connect with these people? And then follow up from there. We didn't touch on it, but a good thing is how many people will contact you on social media. I mean, this is a whole different discussion, but thought leadership is a huge deal today. People will say, well, yeah, I want to be a thought leader. Okay, what are you going to do?
I want to be a thought leader.
Well, there you go. You want to be recognized as like the expert in your area, right?
Yes, I do. That's exactly right. What a fortuitous conversation we're having here. Go on, Steve, go on.
So how do you make that happen? And that's what we're working on with several people is, all right, what are you doing? Well, a book automatically takes you up a bunch of notches as far as that's concerned. I mean, there's a lot of books out there on different topics, but all of a sudden you've written a book and it like takes you way up in the stratosphere. Wow, yeah, that guy wrote it. He's got a book. Oh, okay. And then people leverage that for different things like speaking opportunities, articles. It helps with journalists when you say, oh, he's written a book, and it's a good seller on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, whatever. And this really builds your credibility and the trust with your audience. So that's a good place to start. Podcasts like this are another great place where you can demonstrate your thought leadership and get on all kinds of different podcasts that are important to your audience and fulfill a need. There's other kinds of interviews, print articles. Maybe you can write a blog. You can contribute to other books. I've actually contributed chapters to other books. People have called and said, well, can you do something on PR for my book? I want to include a PR thing. I said, okay. I think. So we ended up doing that. And, that's something else. So there's a big way to build thought leadership. And then there's, of course, television, which takes you to the top. So you see these guys on like Fox, CNN, MSNBC, whatever. Most of the time it's something political or military because of what's going on in the world, things like that. But those people have established some credibility and awareness, and they are kind of the top of the pecking order, so to speak. So can you get there? Yeah, it would take a lot of work to be the ones that the TV networks call, but it can be done. You just need to develop a reputation. In that case, you probably need to have a book or something similar. You need to do TV appearances in small markets on maybe your local Fox affiliate or one of them that may give you the time to talk on something important to the community and kind of build from there. It's hard to get on network television if you've never done a TV interview before. I mean, it's like, man, we're not going to gamble on this guy when we've got 10 other guys standing there ready. So that's important. And then if you've got a block of articles or even blogs that you wrote and you've got a blog and you send that out, and you can send that to like a TV producer or something and say, wow, this guy really knows this. Look at this. Oh my gosh, this guy's great. And then you send him a TV reel with a couple of interviews you've done on TV, maybe one or two on radio. Then you can really ratchet it up. But, to get there takes some time, some work, and some budget. But it can be done. And, it just depends if you want to be well-known locally, want your brand and your thought leadership to be known locally, or do you want to play the big game and jump in with the big boys and see what you can do. Either way, it's an interesting concept, but it can be done.
So can you make me the next Dr. Phil? Is that realistic?
Well, you would need some shtick that nobody else has.
You need a shtick, right? You need a unique message that nobody else has that resonates in the market. Do you help people generate unique messages that resonate in the market? Is that part of what you do there at Solomon Turner?
Yeah, we try and we do come up with stuff. It just depends on who they are and what they want. I mean, we're not going to, if somebody's introducing like a new line of shoes to go against Nike and New Balance, and I mean, that's not us. We're not going to come up with the slogans and all that for that. But for things on more of a local or regional basis, or even something that's real niche oriented, we could help with that and maybe massage that to the point where it's really effective. And you can, there's a lot of ways to do this stuff. You can test it with groups. You say, okay, I like this one. Let's test it. Let's send out an email to 10 people and get response, or 20 or 100, whatever it is. Okay, well, we had mixed results. Let's do B and send that out to a different group and see, oh, wow, they really like that one. Okay, so we're going to stick with B and get rid of A. So, I mean, there's testing techniques and things like that.
Split testing, as they say in the industry.
Right.
So, okay, you mentioned that, like, we began our conversation talking about how you would promote events for Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins. So, like, I am interested, it's all about me, Steve. I am interested in doing events also. I would love to put on seminars and stuff like that. So I think it's a really great way for people to, build business, build authority and whatnot, and which is, I guess, what Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins were doing way back then. If there's somebody who's like an older person and they're like, they want to start a new business or, something, and they want to get an audience and they want to do it through doing these live events, what's a good way to because that's a hard thing, how to get people to sign up and get their butts in the seats. What's the inside trick? You did it professionally at a very high level for a long time. how do you get people to show up, Steve?
Well, the question there is, what is the audience? I mean, the audience of people that are, kind of on the down slope, so to speak, that are 65 and older. I mean, if that's
Most
your
people are on
target.
the upslope. I want people who are 65 and on the upslope. I want people who are 65 who want their 60s, 70s, and 80s to be the best years in their lives. That's what I want.
Okay. So there are some groups around. Have you ever heard of Oasis?
Yes.
Okay. So we have put clients on the Oasis what circuit, so to speak, where Oasis has offices in different markets, San Diego, St. Louis, and some other ones. And then they do a lot of video Zoom casts where people can join in from all over the country, and we've done a lot of those. So that would be a place. That is an older audience. You're 60 plus for sure, if not older. And so things like that would be good. And there's others too. Some of these universities. I attended one of the ways I got started my book was I went to creative writing classes at our college, Washington University, which well-known school, but they have stuff for seniors and different things after hours and during the summer. So that's a good place to kind of build a name, learn things, and then you could even teach a class or expand that out or do a seminar to that network of people that go there. And it's real interesting. There's vehicles like that. I'd have to know more about you and your, what you want to do and all those kinds of things. But there are groups. I like the niche. I love this show, and I like the niche because, people aren't dead. A lot of people think, well, they're 65. They're ancient. If you're 30, 65 is like ancient. Oh, yeah. They're like my grandparents now. But, we're not dead. We're out there. We're we're changing the world. We're making great things happen on a daily basis. And people need to pay attention to that. And we have a platform. And we need to just educate people that we're alive and kicking. And here's what we bring to the table. And here's the problems we solve. And one thing that we have that the younger people don't have is this huge wealth of experience. We've been there. We can cut through the clutter, where before it's trial and error. Well, I tried this in my 20s and it didn't work, and it took me 5 years to figure out that this wasn't for me. And then I want this, and I did in my 30s, and I figured out this wasn't for me. Finally, when I hit 40, the light went off, and that's my career path, or I learned some things. So we have this huge wealth of experience. One of my clients calls it the mountain shepherds that he hires, that people that are old, that have been through the wars and can counsel you on how to get over the hurdles and make your business goals. So we have this experience, and we have this mental Rolodex that is huge from everything we've done, and it's just waiting to be tapped. So how do we tap that and monetize it, if that's what you want to do? I notice a lot of people go. Are you familiar with SCORE, the Small Business Resource Center?
No.
Okay. So the Small Business Association has a group called SCORE, and in every city they have former executives and business owners to help young ones coming up to get them where they want to be. Now, this is a nonprofit, and they don't charge. But you sit down and you talk to younger people and say, okay, this is what you need to do. So they tap that mental Rolodex that we all have, all those lifelong experiences, and say, okay, let's forget all these things. This is what you need to do. I can tell you in 5 minutes. And that's it. So we have that, and we need to tap that and make use of it. And if you want to monetize it, how can we do it? How can we take that to the next level? Who's interested? And, who's the target audience? So there's a way to do it.
Right on. Okay, so if we look at America today, right? I mean, who is really actually leading the country? Really, Trump is 79, Biden similar age, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, right? Bernie Sanders, right? I mean, I kind of reject the notion that people who are older wouldn't really have a lot of ability, stamina, and wherewithal to actually really do big things, right? Because that's mostly who I see doing big things. I think we have, some younger people who are, sports stars, NBA stars, some singers, right? People who in hip hop, right? Like Instagram influencers, really. But a lot of this is superficial, sort of, skin deep type stuff, right? Not that art isn't, but it's more of a physical thing rather than a cerebral or like philosophical or moral kind of questions that I think are the big questions of today. So I really see the seniors are the people who are doing this and who really need to have their voice amplified. And I think seminars is a good way to go about it. And also, I think that seminars are really important for brand building. So, everything that you've described here, it sounds to me like it's like kind of like the long game, right? There's no shortcuts to any of this.
No.
Is that right? Are you sure? There's no easy button I can hit that will like rocket me to the top like overnight?
Well, unless you do a phenomenal music video that would get the young people on TikTok and all these things going, or you luck out into like a Stanley Tumbler moment where the lady's house is burning or the car's burning and the tumbler survives. I mean, those are 1 in a million, so chances are that's not going to happen. But if you could come up with something that's interesting, novel, attracts attention, and solves a problem, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's things on YouTube. I mean, everybody's on YouTube. I'm on YouTube constantly these days. I mean, it's phenomenal information. I mean, it's amazing to me. I mean, you could get $1 million worth of information in a couple hours if you pay attention to what's going on out there. So, yeah, you need to find the format, the platform, the problem solving, and make it interesting for the younger, if you want to hit that younger folk to really get into the conversation and kind of build on it. Well,
you need something novel, and you need to differentiate yourself from all the other people
Right.
who are doing the exact same thing as you, right? It's like, okay, so dishwashing soap, right? Like all dishwashing soap apparently has basically the same active ingredient, right? So why are there like 20 kinds of dishwashing soap, right, that all do the exact same thing, right? So like Dawn has the classic thing, like we help rescue oil-soaked birds, right? Like, well, there you go, that's a big differentiator, right? And Dawn does do a great job with that. So yeah, differentiation is the key. And do you help guys or companies or whatever figure out how to differentiate themselves in a crowded market?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. We're not marketing experts as far as, brand. Like we wouldn't go into like a retailer and say, okay, let's pull your brand apart with all your products and kind of figure this out. But once they get kind of close, we can kind of massage it and get the message right and then take off from there. So, and we can polish the apple and if there's, and figure out ways to work with the media and leverage it. So we can get some TV coverage, we can get some radio coverage, we get on these podcasts, we get some print articles, and then build up this good library of tools to build that brand, and then it leads to bigger and bigger things. The more tools you have, the bigger things you're going to be able to secure. So, like I said before, if the eventual goal is to get on CNN or Fox or one of the networks, just get on TV as much as you can on a local level and build it up. Nail your message to a smaller audience, even podcasts, You want to zip in on that message. And then you could even take clips from your podcast on YouTube or whatever and put that on your reel and say, okay, I was on the local Fox affiliate, I was on this podcast, did an interview here, here's some stuff on radio. So you get all these things together, and then you've got this library of great tools that maybe people in your niche don't even have. And so it's like, well, why should we work with this guy? Why should we put this guy on? Well, look at all this stuff. Oh, yeah, wow, this guy's great. Yeah, let's do it.
Well, you're great, Steve. So you're an older person. You said you're over 70, right? So what keeps you going? Like, why do you get up every morning? Why are you still out there, out there hitting the bricks, hustling and doing that thing, right? I mean, what keeps you going?
Well, I like business, number one, and I love doing PR, I guess, and I work for myself, so at this stage I don't need, we don't need staff and all these things, so I can have, a few clients, I can pick and choose and do what I want. And financially, it's okay. It's not like, oh, we need every dollar we can get, we're fine. So that works. So we're in that special place where we're okay, and then I can just pick and choose what I want to do. So the book is, my latest thing. I just talked to so many people, and, they said, we need a book on PR that is not a textbook, that doesn't get off in behavioral economics and all these crazy things, that we could actually understand, and something we could get lessons from and get instruction from, and model some things that we could do on our own. And we're not a big business. Maybe we're a small business, or we're a PR pro that's kind of dabbles around. We need something. So a couple people told me this, and I said, you're right, and I'm going to write it. I first I was thinking about a memoir, just, kind of like lessons learned and things like that. And then the more I got into it, the more people said, no, you need to really get into the strategic stuff, the strategy, why you did this, how did it work, what were the results, so people can follow that. I said, okay. So I did that, and then I took 14 campaigns that we worked on. And put that in the book. And one of them was the Brian Tracy, how that came about, the interesting story. And there's all kinds of other things. And so, and then I ended up interviewing 4 of the top PR people in the country that I know, that are just really at the top of the game, really outstanding. And so they're in the book, with advice for people getting into the business, what's happening with AI and all these kinds of things. So that's all in there. So in one book, I think I've covered a lot of ground. And, it's up to people if they like it or not. But hopefully they will. And it just went live on Amazon. So we're really excited about that. And getting some good feedback so far. So we'll see how it goes.
Is there an audio version of that book? Because you have a great voice for narration. So is there an audio version of that?
I'm working on it. Yeah. A couple people have told me that. So going back to my early days, I was in the radio business. I was on the air. I wanted to be a sports announcer. So I did a lot of football and basketball and baseball games on a local level, high school stuff. And then I did minor league baseball in Fort Myers for the Kansas City Royals Class A team. And then I did the Kansas City Royals exhibition games in Florida. Baseball play-by-play. So I've done a lot of stuff. I've done a million commercials and all kinds of things. So, yeah, I've trained a voice, and I've got this whatever, and I'm going to use it to do an audible and see how it goes and get that out there. Because, half the people, well, I don't read books. I just listen to them. Like, okay, that's fine. Hard to take notes on an audible, but, if you can, that's great.
Well, I don't really read books either, so I'm listening to Chet Holmes' Ultimate Sales Machine right now for the second time. And the Wealthy and Well-Known book, there is no audiobook version of that. So I am, for the first time in literally decades, I have a highlighter, and I'm going through, and I'm highlighting the things that I think are very important. So if it's a good enough book, I will do that. So, but now I have to ask, based on our earlier conversation, if you are making a book, I have to wonder, what are you building up to? Are you going to try to get on NBC, Fox, CBS? Are we going to see you on Good Morning America soon? Or where's this book going to take you that you haven't already been?
Yeah, I don't know. A few years ago, not this last Taylor Swift deal, but a few years before that, she released this big album, and she was interviewed on all the talk shows. And we were sitting there going, wow, Taylor Swift's not only a great singer, she's a great marketer, one of the best. Look at this. She's everywhere. She has people coming over to her house at midnight to test drive her new album and songs and all this. This is way before Kelsey and all this nonsense. So I put together a pitch on that, and I just, like a blog thing, and I sent it to the TV stations here in town, and our Fox affiliate said, "Oh my God, can you come on and talk about Taylor Swift?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess." So I was actually interviewed about marketing and PR for like 5 minutes on our Fox affiliate here, and that was pretty cool. So I've been on TV, I've been on radio, I've done it all, podcasts, written articles, write blogs, all that thing. So that's fun. So yeah, I mean, I would really like to get this book out there. I think there's a huge audience for it. And I think it's simple enough where it's a quick read. It's not a textbook. You don't have to sit there all night and think about it. I mean, you can go from chapter to chapter and then keep the book so you can go back and look at the campaigns and get ideas. I even found myself doing that because I even wrote the book, but then I figured, wait a minute, how did that campaign work a few years ago? So I went back in and looked at the strategy and said, oh, yeah, why don't I do that here? So that's important. And, I just want to get it out, build my brand. If it ends up on a network somewhere, great. That would really put it over the top. But I also have some novel ideas I'm going to try as we go along here. I've got PR That Works T-shirts that we're going to have, and I'm sending some of those out, and I'm going to probably end up selling those. I think they're great, and anybody in PR would be happy to wear it, I would think, because it tells people that I'm great in PR. And it's a conversation starter. So if you've got this nice T-shirt that says PR That Works, and you're in a restaurant, somebody says, "Are you in PR?" Yeah. Yeah, well, we were thinking about hiring a firm. What do you do? How do you do it? Those kinds of things. I think it's a great conversation starter, and it's big. So it'll attract some attention. And we've already had a few people a few people grabbed them and ran, and I'm like, oh, okay, I think this is going to work. So we'll see.
Well, that's awesome. So now I have to ask you, so the Taylor Swift thing, this is what we call news hijacking, right? I mean, you hijack something that was in the news and you leverage that into like an appearance on a major media, right? So is that something that's covered in PR That Works? How to effectively news hijack?
Not exactly, but yeah, we kind of hit around that. We don't get into the nuts and bolts of how to do that. I think that would be maybe a different book, but I wanted to stick with the main concepts and not get too much into the weeds.
Tactical.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right. But is news hijacking I have always viewed news hijacking as a way to that's the easy button, right? How to get take a few steps up into the media ecosystem. So is that something that Solomon Turner helps people do? Is take advantage of these events and figure out how you can leverage them to get a lot of media?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If there's something, what I tell people, and this is important, is if there's an international event or story and there's a local angle to that, somebody who has a relative that was impacted in Israel, Gaza, India, something like that, get on locally and talk about it, because the local stations are always trying to figure out how to cover these events. One of the grandest things that's ever happened, as far as actual media time, we have a client called ThrottleNet that's an IT company here in St. Louis. They do a lot of cybersecurity. Well, do you remember that CrowdStrike event last?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of a sudden nobody could get on their Microsoft stopped working. Nobody could get on their business sites. Medical stuff was shut down because of this. So we have a relationship with our NBC affiliate, and the guy calls me. He says, "Steve, can you get somebody down to the station to talk about this from your IT company?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll call the client." Well, the client was just about out the door to go on vacation. He had his dogs in the car and his bags packed. And I called him. I said, "George, this is a great opportunity. You got to do it." And he said, all right. So he showered and cleaned up, and he went downtown, which, he drove all the way down there for the interview. And he was great on camera. He really is good, and he knows how to communicate. He's done a lot of these. So he was on at the 11 o'clock news, I think it is here. Anyway, he was on for 5 minutes. And they loved him. And they say, well, can you stay for the 12 o'clock? So he said, yeah, I guess. So he stayed for the 12 o'clock, and he was on again. And then, can you stay for the 4 o'clock news? Well, okay. Then he was on. There was one he was on for 7 minutes on the newscast. 7 minutes on the newscast. I mean, that's unheard of. And that was amazing. And in the meantime, when he's not actually on the air, he's kind of sitting there like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I have to come back here. So he was doing radio interviews while he was sitting there when he wasn't on TV. So he had like 20 some odd minutes of TV airtime, which is crazy, on a local TV newscast, a combination of this stuff. So that was unbelievable. And, things like that are possible. So that's newsjacking. We had the CrowdStrike thing, and then a local guy took advantage of it. We do that. If there's, mostly a lot of this tech stuff, because it's so important and it just, brings down people's livelihoods, that, the media is always willing to talk to an expert. So we can get a lot of that. Or, maybe there's a construction thing. This would be something that I would think of. I don't know what, if it's possible, but, the ballroom at the White House. Maybe if you had a construction guy that's put together ballrooms or big things like this attached to mansion, whatever, there'd be a local angle on that and say, well, this guy, you've heard about that. Here's a guy here in St. Louis that has done that work before. And, let's get that guy on. So there's always a way to amplify that and get coverage. So you're right, newsjacking is part of it. Some of it's not easy, but, some of it's obvious. And it just depends on what it is and who you have in your arsenal to talk about it.
Obvious to you, maybe, but perhaps not obvious to the person out there who's just trying to, get heard in a very crowded market. And that, I think, is why someone might want to hire someone like you and Solomon Turner. So if somebody did want to, the book is on Amazon.com, right? But it's much better to talk to you. I mean, you really sound like you know what you're talking about, Steve. So can people, are you available for people to talk to? If someone just says, hey, Steve, let me talk to me about, I have this thing, and can you help me with it? Is there a way people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, please. Call me. My email is sturner@SolomonTurner, SolomonTurner.com, sturner@SolomonTurner.com. Phone number is 314-205-0800, 314-205-0800. Our website is SolomonTurner.com, and you can always Google and AI search me, which is, we can talk about AI search, which is a whole different show, but if you do that, you'll see a lot of these articles and shows and different things I've been involved with and written and so forth. So a lot of these things will pop up, and we're happy to talk to people, even if they're a small company. They have 5 employees, fine. Is there a strategy? Do they have a budget? What can be done? We're happy to talk to them. If they're a big corporation and they feel like they need to change their PR approach or something, we're happy to talk to them. It just depends on who they are and what their goals are.
All right, terrific. So that's Solomon, as in King Solomon, and Turner, as in Tina Turner. And there you go.
That's it.
There you go. All right. Well, Steve, I have to say, I've really enjoyed our conversation here today, and a lot to think about. I've learned a whole lot, and I'm sure that our listeners have too. So before we wrap it up, do you have any final words you want to share with everybody?
No, just think about what you want to do as you approach your, more golden years, as they say, and, you have a wealth of knowledge built up. If you want to monetize that, figure out how you can do that and make good use of your time while you're here. And if you don't, figure out how you can be of service to the community, how you can serve, I think that's very important too. We have things we can do. We've been through the grind, as they say, and we can help a lot of people, whether they're in business or they just have some personal challenges. if we know enough and we've been through the same thing, we've got a solution to their problem, why not? Get out there and let people know you're available and you can help.
Why not, indeed? All right. Well, Steve, thank you so very much. I really have enjoyed our conversation so much, and I will catch you on the flip side.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, that's a wrap for this episode of 60 Plus Uncensored. Huge thanks to Steve Turner for setting the tone with such honesty and insight. Now, if you like this episode, do me a favor, do Steve a favor. Hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and then share it with someone you know who needs to hear it. Oh, and by the way, if you happen to know someone over 60, like Steve, who's still out there doing big things, living boldly, working with purpose, or just aging on their own terms, I would love to hear from you. Reach out at team60plus.com or join the conversation at 60 Plus Uncensored on Reddit. I'm Seb Fry, and this is 60 Plus Uncensored, because as we're learning, life after 60 isn't the end, it's just getting good.
Subscribe now